Well, I'm Luke. Welcome back to Leicester City Down Under. Thank you for tuning in for an opposition fan preview. Today we are joined by Peter. Peter, mate, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Glad to have me.
Great. Oh, he's in. We've been talking about this for a while, Pete. Pete, talk to me, mate. How do you feel right now? Before we get into this preview, mate, talk to me about your kind of brief overall feelings on the club. I know you're in the summer without a sporting director. You've had players go in, out, not come in. Are you worried about some of the brief signings you've made through Eddie Howe? Give me a talk about, are things a bit stale right now around Newcastle?
Well, for me, it was a massive decision to let Amanda and Gerdrad go. It was a massive, those bolstered the club. They were the ones that started the revolution at Newcastle, like the takeover and the ex-Ashley era, and it was the start of what Newcastle fans were dreaming of as a club. They went. It wasn't just the men. They did a lot for the women's team and the under 21s, and it was just everything just sort of fell into place. And even though we played really well that season when we got into the Champions League, I think it was a massive thing from behind the scenes more than anything.
100%, mate. And I really respected as well that season as well. Hey, you guys, you didn't breach PSR. There was talks about maybe you're flirting with it, but you guys just slowly were starting to build a team. And I was really and you obviously got rich owners that brought in. I was obviously probably proper exciting for you, but the feel I'm getting right now around a lot of Newcastle content is that things have gone a bit stale. Maybe Eddie Howe's out of ideas, but we'll get into that in a minute. Just gonna get into some comments here. Klebo, mate, thank you for tuning in. Your legend, how are you? Andreas is in as well. How are you, mate? Good morning, good afternoon.
Hello, everyone.
Right, let's get into it. So this is the Newcastle preview against Leicester City. So, Newcastle recent form, Pete, talk to me. Yeah. You guys lost to Brentford 4-2 away. You drew with Liverpool, which is a decent result, but then you drew a Palace. So talk to me the last couple of games, mate, and your overall form. A bit patchy. Decent, obviously, to draw of Liverpool, who are flying right now. But why don't you talk to me about the Brentford game, mate, and how you felt about that?
Well, it was just a very slow start, similar to the Palace game. I feel like nothing was clicking. I feel like sometimes we go into a game and just think that everything's just going to work automatically. We've had a lot of good runs and a lot of the players. I don't know if the players just think everything's just going to fall into place for them, but it can't just keep working against teams like Liverpool and the top teams. It's got to work against the mid-table teams and the bottom teams, because that's what makes a top team to a medium team.
100%, mate. And so you think that there's I know that you've been a bit, you've had some revelations in your defense, but I know that recently your defense has been a bit, questionable at times. You have been a bit vulnerable. Why don't you, we're going to get into that in a second here. But other than that, mate, talk to me. Liverpool, amazing to come back for the draw. Talk to me about that and how you felt about that game. Were you still Eddie Howe out then? Hang on. Are you Eddie Howe out, Pete?
Am I Eddie Howe out? Oh,
yes, actually.
It's a tough one, because I know a lot of friends that are Eddie Howe out and a few that Eddie Howe in. For me, it's going to be on what happens in the next couple of games for me. That's the hardest thing, because we can't be giving Eddie Howe a transfer window if they're going to get rid of him, because there's no point of Eddie Howe bringing in players from his perspective that he thinks are good for him but are not good for a new manager. There's it's same as what you guys did. I love Rude as a manager, I love Rude as a player, but for me, he's got a great example and a great perspective on football. And he loves the way he plays, because I watched a few of your games. He plays amazing football. I'd rather have Rude at Newcastle than Eddie at the moment.
So, hang on, Andreas has put this on clear. Luke is a free agent if you fancy an awkward charge, mate. Fucking right, mate. Look, I I understand what you're saying, because like you basically are saying you don't have faith in Eddie Howe in the terms of the players that he's recruiting. You want to have an identity, because we with Brendan Rodgers, when we got relegated, pissed away so much money, and he got way too much control over the players that came in that didn't work out. Although in saying that, ironically, I actually about to eat my words a bit. Some of the signings that we thought were garbage under Rodgers have started turning out right, like Samari. But we'll get into him later, mate. But basically, you're telling me you're not Eddie Howe out, but you're on the fence?
I am on the fence.
Wow, bro! What an insult! So high horse. If Leicester
I can't slate the man. I cannot slate the man. What he's done for the club is unreal, but you can't really blame a lot of it on him, because some of the games you should expect our team to beat the opposition team, but we've just gone out and done nothing on paper. But the thing is, as well, you've got to take into PSR into undercount as well, because PSR is a massive thing, because we didn't have any fluctuation and stuff underneath Ashley. I hate saying his name, but it's the truth. We weren't like the big teams where we were selling players for 20, 30, 40, 50 million and then get someone in, then doing the same and having that income and outcome process. We we'd buy players for like Ashley would buy players for like max 10 million, and then like he'd be like, "Oh, I've got no more money left." You know what I mean? Like now we've got money. We're just trying to build the PSR up to then be able to spend. But as a person, I wouldn't want us to go out and spend like, do a Chelsea and go out and spend stupid amount of money and bring in 10, 15 players, because I think that would ruin the system of the club.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you, mate. So basically, you need to sell players before you can bring players in. Obviously, on the books,
Yeah.
Unless you guys can sell yourself a hotel like Chelsea. But you guys
that would be nice.
Wouldn't it be nice? You guys do have 3 left wingers. Before we move on to our form, mate, talk to me. Talk to me about Harvey Barnes. Are you looking after him? What do you think? Is he predictable? He's been used more of a finisher for you guys. I did see he got a start, I think, in the last game. But talk to me about Harvey Barnes and what your thoughts are on him at the club so far.
I love him as a player. His time in front of goal is amazing. Like he just knows how to find the back of the net. He can be very predictable, but even though he's very predictable, he still seems to find a way. But the problem is that Eddie Howe somehow, because that will go into the transfer conversation down the line, but the right wing position for us is a massive thing. That when it was in the previous transfer window, Eddie Howe wanted Mark Gahey to come in, and what we heard as Newcastle fans was Mark Gahey or nothing else. So from a perspective of our club needs a right centre back and a right winger, we've gone from having like he's pushing all the money and pushing everything for Mark Gahey when the club's crying out for a right winger, and then Chiesa goes to Liverpool for 12 million. Like for us, like we were all saying Chiesa because we got like Tonali and it would help Tonali, and you know what I mean, it would be that you just build something off it, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things.
One of those, man. I'm with you. We were screaming for the longest time for a right winger as well. We finally got one, and now he's done his ACL. So happy days. Moving on, mate. We got Eddie Howe.
He's an amazing player, by the way.
He is an amazing player, mate, and I'm just hoping he comes back, at least half the player was before. So these are some notes you wanted me to put down, mate. Eddie Howe, questionable decisions, needs to be more ruthless, needs to start strongest team, players in correct positions, i.e. Gordon being played up top, as I remember you telling me. And does Eddie Howe, we kind of touched on already, deserve another transfer window? Mate, talk to me about some of these points you've got here and your thoughts and how you feel right now about Eddie Howe to wrap him up.
So starting from the top, his decisions is obviously for my biggest one, and obviously Newcastle fans have said, AC Milan fans have got into the conversation saying, why is Tonali on the bench? Like, Tonali's one of the best Italian midfielders going around today. But even though I love a lot of our Newcastle players, he had to start in front of them. Like, you can't go out and put someone like Tonali on the bench or Like, you know what I mean? There's just some decisions that he just doesn't make. He doesn't make 100% correct, and people call him out for it, and then he says it's his plan, but it just doesn't work, and he doesn't come out sometimes and say I'm wrong. But we need him to, one, make the right decision and play the players. Like if Tonali's playing internationally for Italy, how can he not play for us? Like those are the questions that we're asking as a fan base, going, why is he not doing that? And yeah,
Okay.
and for being more ruthless, that will lead into that's leading into like players that have been inconsistently with form. It's hard with our centre backs because like maybe Dan Burn and Shah have not been the best of what they have been, but obviously with our lack of centre backs is going to be quite out there at the moment because we've got Lloyd Kelly as our only other choice centre back. So, but there are players out there that have not been playing the best, and maybe dropping them for one game could sort of give them a kick up the ass, basically, to say, wake up, like we need to push on and try and do something, like to push on for the second half of the season.
Yeah, players too comfortable. Yeah, exactly. That screams of this last season we had under Brendan Rodgers, like likes of Tillemans, stuff like that. No one's putting in a proper shift in. Barnes wasn't tracking back. I'm sure you're well familiar with that as well. Now you've also got here as well. Needs to start players in correct position. So tell me who you think's been starting out of position, and where you would like them to be starting. Like that's really fucking irritated you.
Right, for me, like I love Bruno to bits, but our club needs to buy a proper defensive midfielder and allow Bruno to push into like in a centre attacking mid position and get him further forward. I feel like when he's in that position behind the striker, he's good at making that pass behind. He's good at doing the 1-2s. His all round game around that box area is perfect. I like him getting the ball in that sort of 6 role and then passing it, but I feel like sometimes he does a bit too much and gets caught on the ball. Like, and for me, like starting players in the right position, obviously, like you said, was Gordon as a striker. Like he did that for the England under 21s. I think it was when they won the Euros. But there's a difference between coming up against good players who play under 21s, but then coming up against like Gabriel Saliba, like Virgil van Dijk and you know what I mean? There's a big difference when you're doing that, when obviously everyone knows that Gordon out on the wing, he might not have a good game every now and then, but on the wing, you just know something's going to happen. Like the fans get off the seats, they're up and about. Like you're like, oh, when he like dropping his shoulder and he wants to run, you know what I mean? Like it's just so good to watch yeah.
And you also told me that, like, which is even more egregious, especially for all us Leicester fans who can relate. You also told me that Harvey Barnes even got deployed on the right wing a few times.
Oh yeah, that's why I was going on about the right. That was going on to the right position, because another thing about players being out of position was he was pushing Gordon onto the right wing. I know he made the good cross against Arsenal for the Isaac header, but the problem was like, I feel like Gordon on the left is like 80-90% better than he is on the right. Like, I know it sounds like everyone's like, oh, the wingers, they should be able to play both sides. But for me, Gordon on the left, because then he was pushing Joelinton onto the left wing.
Okay.
And taking him out of his main position. What was stressful.
You know what stresses me out before we move on? I think it's Miguel Amarais. I don't know what it is about him, but he has the most punchable face. He looks like a character in Game of Thrones that pickpocket you. He fancies a goal against Almiron there. I don't know what it is. He's not done any wrong to me personally, but he's got a punchable face. Him and Pickford. Anyways, moving on.
Oh, I hate Pickford, so you can have Pickford fight with a punch if you want to. I don't care.
Deck him together. This is some of the things you put down as notes to me. Improvement to attitude. Centre backs not push out of position. Well, that sounds like Wout phase. Keep possession, build up, overlapping fullbacks. Pope's been poor on the ball, but a decent shot stopper. Playing Gordon on the left, we talked about that. Shah, inconsistent diagonal balls. And Isaac needs more service. So talk to me, give me an overall, summary of all of these things. Like, we've talked about some of this already, but, why don't we talk about Pope on the ball?
So, Pope on the ball, he moves so slow. I know he's a big, tall guy, but, there's, you see, Mamadashvili and, Donnarumma and everyone like that. They're all tall keepers, but I don't know if it's just because, he's English and, you know what I mean? He's just, he's just been training to just save the ball and that's it. Unless that the shoulder injury he had has, done something to him through the time, I don't know. But he just seems like when you pass the ball back to him, all Newcastle fans are like, you know what I mean? Because he takes that touch and it's a bit of a heavy touch, and then you just close your eyes and hope he kicks the ball. It's just panic. So yeah.
Have you conceded goal? Has it been like a pressing trigger for you where he's panicked on the ball and he's been closed down and he's put a skew of pass in and
We've conceded goals where he's been passed the ball back and he's just had to hoof the ball. We've lost the ball and it's just and then everyone's just out of position. Everyone's just and then they just push up the field and it's just a goal. It's just, we need, as much as I like Pope, I feel like, was it? No, I can't remember. It was the Burnley goalkeeper, I think we were linked with. Right. And there was a few others, for some reason, Eddie Howe likes English players, what I'm not complaining about, but they, I wouldn't mind going out for a keeper that, obviously Pope's getting on a little bit, it would be good to get a keeper that is a bit more confident on the ball. I feel like if you get someone like that, I think it settles the team and you can always play out from the back. Not all the time, because
I know what you mean, because that is the way the game's going, isn't it? Systematic
100%.
Football, being good at your feet, but also a decent shot stopper, being able to be a sweeper keeper if need be, played out the back. That's where we were so lucky to get
not when Pope runs out halfway out of his goal sometimes.
Mate, I've seen scary stuff from Danny Ward, so don't worry. Moving on, Leicester City recent form. Leicester City, guys, we all know that we are completely stoked right now. We just drew with Brighton. It feels like a win. We talk like it's a win. Absolutely amazing to come back. Ruud van Nistelrooy, yet again, improving upon the last game in the brief time he's been here. And also that he's been, not only is he proactive with his sub and make him early, but he's also reactive to the other subs from the other team. So he's constantly thinking. I'm really optimistic. I think that obviously people can say managerial bounce, but just seeing the absolute immediate the shoring up the defense. Yes, we are still conceding a lot of opportunities, but we're not conceding nowhere near from the amount of shots, and that would provide be shown to the stats. Also moving on, Leicester City 3, West Ham United 1. That game just was just amazing for us. Honestly, therapeutic for all the Leicester City fans that live and die for this shit like we do, and all the other presenters on blue tinted glasses, people that really love this, and some of you fans as well. From what we had been through under Cooper was just diabolical, and it was getting worse and worse. And the fact that, Koen Top has stepped in and grabbed the ball by the horns and taken care of his club is so reassuring, because, me and myself included and others were starting to question Top. So, look, I'm really optimistic about this game, but we'll talk about the score prediction later. But before that, Brentford, that game was a fucking car crash. But we're well past that now. I feel like it's a complete two different lives.
Well, the only thing I can say is you've beaten two teams there that we lost to, and you lost to Brentford by the same goals as what we conceded. So
I don't do football math, but thank you, mate. It's a little reassuring. Okay, now this is what I want to talk about. Leicester City right now has a bit of a double pivot conundrum. Skip, obviously, you can see there's 100%, I think, going to be in. But at the moment, we don't know if Winks is going to be available with his groin strain. No Ndidi's hamstring. They said it might not be as bad as they first thought, but we're yet to hear anything. Samari, unfortunately, is suspended, who is now locked in his place. And Ricardo, obviously, out for a long time, I believe, also with his hamstring. So the one thing I want to talk about is what is really been crucial for us in only, I know it's been only 2 games, but under Ruud van Nistelrooy is Samari and Ndidi together in that double pivot position. Ndidi had been closer to his best, when he was good for Rodgers, being that last minute shore up the defense in front of the centre backs, mop up the ball, proper physical, winning the ball back. He started doing that again. I think the 8 and 10 experiment for him is over. And Samari having the ability to do everything physical, that proper engine room. He's getting better at tracking back. He's getting amazing at picking up passes and taking that ball and driving forward. I do believe Skip can do similar things, just nowhere near as physical. However, he has played as a centre-back and inverted before for Tottenham. So what worries me is you guys have a proper physical midfield, and that's where I think this game's going to be heavily contested. And I really think Ndidi and Samari would have been, vital for that game in particular against you guys. But unfortunately,
I was going to say, not from it's harsh to say, but obviously, Ndidi and Samari, like you said, are a big physical force, and that again, that's what Joelinton loves in it. Like in a midfield battle, he's always a body contact player. You know what I mean? He loves a battle. But what, from a Newcastle perspective, what would you think of? Is it El Canoes playing there?
So I did it 11, and I sent it to some of the people. I sent it to Locks and Neil and a few. I think I even sent it to Ant. I sent quite a few of the other presenters for Leicester. A lot of them were like, I don't know, and I can understand why. The complaint was he's not physical enough, but in my opinion, he was winning balls back further up the pitch in that game against Brighton, and also even against West Ham. He was clearing out. He was dropping back into defence, clearing the ball out, saving it. I think he's been amazing. He's everywhere. You can see he's thinking. He scans the pitch. He had a few errant passes, but the confidence is growing, and I think there's a real gem in there. I think he could do it, and I'll explain why when I go into the starting 11. But what I do think is going to happen is I think if any of these players here are all unavailable, I do believe it's going to be either Skip and probably most likely Hamza Chowdhury. Now, this is my 11 I've got here. So I flirted with the idea of Canoes in the double pivot, but I've relented. What I do think is most likely going to be is an unchanged back 4. Some people will probably be quite surprised that Cody's in the side ahead of maybe a Coley, but look, if it's not broken, don't fix it just yet. Cody and Vestergaard have been working well together vocally, interchanging of one another. They haven't been caught out yet on transition. I really, really emphasize on the yet, but for now, they've been good. James Justin, we're going to talk about his matchup soon against Gordon because that's the one that I look to worry about, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I definitely see Christensen back in, who's been a massive improvement. And as I just mentioned, Skip as your ball distributor and the double pivot position, and Hamza Chowdhury to be that proper physical, probably man-marking shithousing. We know he's well up for that. He's probably going to get a booking if he starts. El Canoes is your 10. Again, amazing. I definitely can see him dropping a bit deeper to link up play and take the ball and drive, particularly if Boynote is going to drift in. That's the one to watch for, right? So if Boynote drifts in, and we don't have that cover for JJ, that is the one area we've been absolutely really, really vulnerable all season is down that right-hand side for us or your left. So that's one to keep an eye out for, Pete. If Boynote drifts in too much and there is no support for James Justin,
he's a dangerous player, 100%.
Have a very, very difficult day out against Gordon or even Barnes for that matter, but I'm sure he's well familiar with Barnes. Mavididi on the left, he has to start in front of Ayew. Aldercover, in my opinion, is our most threatening winger. He's a real only true out winger as well that's going to take his fullback, take his man on, have that confidence, go forward, put a ball in the box, dribble it, take it around his man, shoot. He's the one threatening player, but some people have been called questionable form lately, but I think he's our most threatening player down the wide pitch. And of course, lastly, the fucking GOAT, Jamie Vardy. Everyone loves him, mate.
He's having a party.
He's 10 more years. He's never going. He's going to be here forever. Also, just to quickly pull up a comment here from Andreas. There is a lot of talk about Michael Golding starting. Not sure how true that is. I did see that press conference, Andreas, and that is quite curious. He did basically as well say the different positions he's played in, but I think he alluded to that he was going to be a 10. So that would be really interesting, mate, if he would have. I don't think he'll start, but I think I can definitely see him potentially getting an option off the bench, which would be good to see to get him incorporated, mate. We did spend $5 million on him. Moving on to Pete's 11 for Newcastle. Pete, why don't you talk to me? Is this what you expect? Is this what you want to see? Why don't you break down this 11 for me?
Well, the biggest thing for me is Murphy and Gordon hopefully will start. Isaac is obviously questionable because he had that slight injury. I think it was like a hip injury or something that he picked up. I'm hoping he'll be 100% fit to go. Julian picked up a shoulder injury. I'm not sure if he will play. If not, I think they'll play. Either Julian will drop out, and I feel like either Willock or Longstaff will play. I think Bruno and Tonali will start. Tino, I'm not sure if he'll start Tino or Trips. I'm not 100% sure. I'd rather go for Tino just because he offers, like, even though Trips is a lot better on the ball, I feel like we do at home, especially, we do like to just counter and just try and push very fast. And I feel like Pope passing it out to Tino and Tino sprinting and trying to break lines and then passing it to like Tonali or Murphy and overlapping running. I feel like he does that better than Trips just because he's a bit quicker. Shah for me has been poor, but if I had another option there, I would have dropped Shah for somebody else personally. Burn for me, like as much as I've been on and off with Dan Burn, I love him as a guy. Like he gives 100% every time, and Lewis Hall and Tino are going to be England's right back and left back in the future, so I'm not really complaining. And Pope for me, I hope he just has a good game.
All right, mate. Well, I just hope that like that's maybe going to be the pressing trigger him on the ball. Vardy always does the dog's work, mate, running keepers down. So, but he's only so much if he can do that now at his age, but he will still do it. Decent 11 here, mate. You guys got a lot of really, really good talent in here and proper decent midfield as well. So I'm a bit worried about it, particularly if some of our injuries. But, mate, looking forward to it. This is the one I want to finish it up with, mate. The matchup to watch, JJ versus Gordon. Now, assuming they're both starting, which I assume they probably will be. Unless, mate, you think that Harvey Barnes is going to get a start ahead of Gordon. Who do you think is going to start? And should it be Gordon, mate? You talk to me because a lot of fans have been calling for his head a little bit at the moment, and he's been real questionable form, Gordon. So why don't you talk to me about him?
He has been very on and off, but when he's on, he's unreal. Like I felt like with the Liverpool game, the incident that Virgil did to him was a bit questionable. I thought that was for me. I thought that was a red card, but I feel like it spurred him on to do something else. And we all love Anthony Gordon. I feel like he will have his chance in the game, but he's happy enough to assist anyone just to get that goal. Like he just from when he come from Everton to Newcastle, he was similar to Harvey Barnes in my sense of like Eddie Howe's worked hard on both of them to try and track back and do the dog work to try and double back on their left wing and right wing and help the right back and help the left back. And now you've seen that, and I feel like their fitness is way better than what he previously has been. So I feel like he can be more in the game more because his fitness is a lot better. So I'm hoping it'll be a good contest. I can't say obviously a lot about Justin, but I know he is a good defender, and I feel like it'll be a great contest between the both.
Yeah, JJ is a brilliant defender, mate. He's kind of not been the same since his injuries, but I do believe he was absolutely been left hung out to dry the whole time in the Cooper, and again it got worse and worse, which obviously didn't help his confidence, and it's starting to slowly creep back against Ruud van Nistelrooy. And I think it's a very interesting topic because I was going to mention that to you, mate, about Gordon, because I've heard a lot from Newcastle fans like, and I think even Gordon alluded to it as well. It's like you're not fit unless you're Eddie Howe fit, and I believe after he had that pre-season and that subsequent second season, obviously you started to see a lot better out of Gordon. It's now his third season. You've got Barnes who's had his preseason. He's been, which we all know he was woeful for tracking back. And it's interesting to hear you point that out as a Newcastle fan now as well, and to start to see the competition for that spot between those two. But more or less, Gordon's been your starter and Barnes has been your finisher. Yeah.
Like if Harvey Barnes was like a right winger from the start for Leicester, and he came to us as a right winger, he would be automatically starting. Like,
I,
like that's the thing. It's just hard to drop someone like Anthony Gordon. Like as much as I like both of them a lot,
mhm.
so it's yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And for me, it's hard when as a Newcastle fan because say we go 1-0 down, or as a fan, as you and you always see something when you're watching it. But for like Eddie Howe, it always comes to Eddie O'Clock, and for me, that's always like the 65th minute, and then he'll make a change. Sometimes he just waits that little bit too long. Um, to make that decision compared to some other managers that will just do it automatically.
Yes.
But and like I know this is something else for like our strengths for our team. Um, like I know Shah's had a not the best time, but I feel like his diagonal balls can catch out teams, especially um, from his position. He always looks either obviously towards where Anthony Gordon is with a diagonal ball. Um, we've got obviously speed through Hall and Tino down the left and right. And Hall is like obviously he was when he was a youngster, he was a centre midfielder that moved into left back, and his ball skill is amazing considering his age. Like he's incredible. Um, yeah, like the way we sort of get the chance of scoring is a lot of it's like obviously through Bruno. Bruno's the main accolade of our team. He's the
Yes.
shining light of our team. He wears his magic
Absolutely.
cap with pride.
Yeah.
He everything goes through him. So usually it's either an overlapping run down on the right or left. If the fullbacks are not doing it, then our team is nothing. It's all through fullbacks and Bruno. So um, and
Brilliant, mate.
obviously, and I feel like Jacob Murphy and Anthony Gordon are obviously your biggest outlets. Like obviously, if we're not overlapping, they have to. It's all about selling the overlapping run or using the overlapping run. That's what it is with us. Like
Yes.
right, like when we scored that goal, I think who was against? Was it Crystal? Was it no? It wasn't Crystal Palace. I can't remember who it was. We beat 3-1. No, it was Nottingham Forest. Sorry, we beat
Yep.
3-1 when I can't remember who was running down the right who helped Jolinton sell the dummy down, like he was going to pass it and then he cut inside and shot it around the keeper with his left foot. Like a lot of that is like he'll either get passed down the right and then squared back, or like squared back and then a tap in, or it was just like there's a lot to it. But I feel like if you can shut out our wingers, Bruno and the fullbacks, I feel like you'll be in with a good shout.
Sweet, mate. Well, I'm feeling. Let's wrap this up, mate. Let's get into a score prediction. My overall thoughts are look, and everyone in the comments, please get your score predictions in. But for me, I even after the first 20 minutes of Brighton, if the game had finished right there, and even if we'd lost, I would have been at peace. I was seeing a lot of patterns of play, keeping possession, pinging the ball about, just giving us that moment of respite, time on the ball, gasses the other people chasing shadows. And Brighton, like we had a lot. I think we finished at 55% possession, and they are a good team right now. I was quite surprised to see that. So look, Brighton probably didn't start their strongest 11, but they are a systematic team. They have an identity and they have the players to either start or come off the bench to fit that. And they've been brilliant with their recruiting. But mate, and I'm going on a tangent here, but I would, even if we lost this game, mate, if I keep seeing an improvement in that defense and just continue to improve on Aruba and Nistelrooy, I'll be happy. I'll be absolutely stoked to the point, and I'd bite your hand up for 3 points. Obviously, you and a lot of the other fans right now are a bit, hot and cold of Newcastle. But I am going to go for a Desmond. I'm going to go for a 2-2. Pete, what are your score prediction for the weekend?
I feel like if we don't press from the start, that's one of our, like I said, one of our biggest things. If we don't press and you keep the fans quiet with it being at home, because the fans at St James's Park are the biggest thing for the players. I feel like if we get the crowd behind us and we press, I feel like it could be like with our defensive record, I'd say maybe like a 3-1 to us. Like, but I feel like if you hold out and it's sort of 0-0 for a while, I feel like it could be like a 1-1 or a 2-2. Like I feel like it'll be a close game. The longer you hold out, the more it'll be stressful for fans, for us, and everything else. Like
I know that feeling. You want to be that 12th man, but like I know what you mean. When it goes quiet and you can hear a pin drop, which I'm hearing a lot of moments early in the season at King Power, that it's can be deafening and painful. You need that energy, and you've been seeing that with Ruud van Nistelrooy, to be fair, proper riling up the crowd when we score. You know, I know it's not the King Power, but I love seeing stuff like that, man. I really do.
oh
Like
yeah,
the energy, the players feel that. You know what I mean? And then and vice versa. So and the fans feel it as well, and the players, you know, celebrating them putting a shift in. When you have those two working together, it really does help morale. Andreas has gone for 2-1 Leicester. I love to see that, mate. Optimistic. I love it. Pete, mate, give us a shout out to where people can find you. I know you're talking about starting up your channel, mate. So, guys, please give up some love for Pete. I think he's been brilliant. Talk to us, Pete. What is your channel name going to be? You're undecided. Give us a shout out.
well, I've been thinking of a few names. I've got Football is Black and White at the moment on YouTube, but that might be changed. It's just what I started with, but this is the first thing I've done. I was a little bit nervous at the time, but I've grown into it, and it's good to do it with a bunch of good Leicester guys who are all a good bunch of people. So I'm proud to do it with you guys, and hopefully we can do something else down the line. So
Thanks, mate. Once Peter decides what he wants to do with his channel, which I do encourage, you've been fine, mate. We've all started somewhere before. I was proper nervous when I started Leicester Fan TV, mate. Leicester Fan TV. Leicester till I die. How dare I, Chris? We're not like hearing that. But, mate, honestly, like, once you figure out what it is, I will put it in the title, guys. Thank you, Andreas, man. I really appreciate the kind words. Just to wrap it up, I am confident we'll get them on the transition. That is what I'm hoping for too, mate. I really am. If we, but
I can see it too, like because Dan Burn and Shah like pushing a little bit too far up, and if you get that ball in midfield, you can press quickly. That's where your catches. 100%. I agree with that. So
there you go, Andreas. Good comment, mate. Pete's giving away the cheat codes. Don't let Ruud van Nistelrooy hear this. Pete, if you ended up pumping us, mate, and we have a bad game, I'm going to fall out with you and start calling you Declan. So, but other than that, mate, honestly, I'm just kidding. Good game. Honestly, mate, wish best of luck to you. And I really enjoyed having you on today. So, guys, if you like this,
it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Peter, mate. If you guys like this, please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will catch you for the match day live on Blue Tinted Glasses and the post-match reaction. Have a good day and enjoy the rest of your week.